from Together and Active Pendle to come and tell us a bit more about the project and his experiences of collaborative working. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for that, Gail. Can no one hear me okay? Just to double check first before we kind of go in. Brilliant, some thumbs up. Fantastic. Thank you as well, Gail, for letting us obviously come here today. And we'll just do a quick introduction to what obviously we're doing in Pendle. And I see some familiar faces, not just from Pendle, but also from Pennine, Lancashire, who are also working on their projects in their kind of localities as well. So, Gail, am I okay to share screen? Is that okay? Will that come through? Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, that's great, Chris.
Okay, so I thought what I'd do is obviously time-wise today, I would just give a bit of a quick whistle-stop tour, really, of what Together and Active Pendle is through something which we've recently just developed, and something which, again, through co-design and collaboration, we've created. So myself and AD Lamb, who's also on this call today, we've been using this, and this is something we've been taking out to our partners and we're working with to really make sure that this is as good as it can be, so everyone gets a real flavour and understanding about how we're trying to do things differently, not just but also Pennine-wide and through Sport England as well. So this is something we call the playbook. And again, what we want to do as part of our role is to help people move from nothing to something and something to more. And that's our way of trying to change our language, change the look, sound and feel about how we speak to people about getting them active. And that might not just be active through kind of traditional movement and physical activity opportunities, but other opportunities as well, where they can socialize. And also, we're not just there to look at physical well-being, but mental and social well-being as well. So I will just skip us through onto the next slide. So as I kind of mentioned, this is a Sport England pilot. And again, I know some of my colleagues are also on the call today. So what we've been tasked to do is to think about new ways of working with our communities and actually realizing that how we can do things in a creative and different way really comes with having this person-centered approach. And we realize that through the collaboration, not just with partners and stakeholders, but with communities and with people at the heart of those communities is what we're trying to achieve as part of this local delivery pilot across Sport England. So I'll quickly move us on. So for those on the call who won't be aware of this, this is, we are one of 12 localities across the whole of England who've been selected. I say selected, maybe we've been given this opportunity to work really differently and challenge how we speak to people, how we engage with people, but also how we have to listen to people. And through this active listening, something which we try and adopt in particular, I know, across Pennine, Lancashire, with the other locality leads and other project officers on this call, is it's about conversation rather than consultation. And through there, it isn't about us imposing our beliefs, telling them or assuming how we should do things. It's about something a bit more mutual and reciprocal, in that we think that they add all the answers. We have assumptions, but the answers they can give us can best help us as a system to support them. And this is a real radical approach, which again, some of the kind of colleagues on the meeting today in the room will know how challenging this is. So something we are looking at is the look, sound and feel, how we speak to people and how we embed specific design principles to really support people to move from nothing to something, then something to more. So a few examples of how we obviously do this in Pendle is we were given this opportunity to have a look at our amazing landscape, our mapping out not just everything which is wrong with the area, but everything which is great about the area, all the assets that the community has. And we were at that stage, and again, one of the consultants who we brought in along this journey is also on the call today, because we realized they were the better place to really find that insight. And through the collaboration with partners who we probably wouldn't have traditionally had partnerships with. We've been able to find out some real amazing learning. So we were kind of given this opportunity to explore physical activity. And we know that this is a problem not just in Pendle or in Pennine, Lancashire, but all over Lancashire and across England and the United Kingdom. But for us in Pendle, we were given this opportunity to look into cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and mental health as one of our work streams. And then the other work stream was really going into the neighbourhoods of Nelson, so Briarfield, Bradley, Walden, Whitefield, and just holding those conversations which we talked about before, and realising that ourselves and where we're placed within Pendle Leisure Trust and Pendle Borough Council, maybe because of the way that we might be perceived, we're not best placed. And something which we have been able to do, and I think has been real testament to the way that we're trying to change our way of working, has been to put our hands up and say, we don't know the answers to this, to be really honest. And that's given us the opportunity to go out and make new relationships, to forge new relationships with partners who we would never have spoken to before. And again, this has led us down this path of our 2 work streams. So I will quickly just move on to, again, a quick whistle-stop tour of our kind of journey. So where we've come from the very beginning, from 2019 all the way to the present day. So obviously we went out to communities, we did a lot of this conversation work, and we were able to find out what was really important to people. From there, we then were able to co-design and co-create collaboratively a submission, which we then submitted. And then what we actually wanted to do is take it a step further. So rather than ourselves going out and doing this, we realized that it needed more local people, local businesses. And that what we did is we looked at In Situ, who are on the call today, and their kind of relationship and where they stand within the community, and other kind of insights, so Pearson Insights as well, to really give them the opportunity to co-design and co-create the research and insight, which would lay the foundations and the platforms for where we move next along this journey as Together an Active Pendle. So hopefully this one will come through. There we go. I'll just click through this so it doesn't take too long. So something which we got out of that was this idea that, and something which I think we would never have adopted as a council or leisure trust, was meeting people halfway, and the launch of our website in July 2020 in both English and Urdu, and also the fact that we didn't create this. This was created by local artists, which Paul, who is on the call, knows really well, and they created this for themselves. So they were able to shape the way that we look, they're able to then own it, and then they lead it as well. So again, something which we kind of relinquished a bit of that control that we would usually have as a project management team. And through this collaboration, we're able to create something quite different. There we go. So where we're kind of at now is, again, we're utilizing local community partners. They've joined our steering group, which we call the movement group, again, to make sure that we don't use that kind of old look, sound and feel. And we've made sure as much as we can do, and where possible, to diversify that group so that it really represents local people. And we're now in this stage at the moment where we're trying to also now allow people to forge the questions and then propose them back to ourselves on the system as stakeholders, partners, councils, leisure trusts, local authorities, to then pose the answers and create the answers with the questions which they've created, and trying to just flip that model on its head. So we do have obviously our 2 work streams, which are we call Seat to Feet. Again, looking at those long-term health conditions and the rationale behind why we chose these conditions to explore in further detail. And then we also have our second one, which I've already mentioned, finding out needs to support our neighbourhoods in those areas of Briarfield and Nelson. What I'll also do, Gail, is I'll make sure that you can, we have access to this, which can be shared out for everyone as well. Just close that there. Stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, you've already answered one of my questions, which was, can we share that fantastic presentation with everybody? And it was a really fantastic presentation that kind of went into the detail of, you know, how you'd structured all that collaborative work, and the timelines involved. And I don't know about everybody else, but when those pop-ups appear, I'm like, is that my computer? Is that your computer? But
yeah,
the joy of technology. You'd have thought that Zoom would have some kind of mechanism to even stop them appearing, but you know, I'm not an IT developer. So I'm aware that you need to leave us quite shortly, Chris, but Adrian Lamb is on the call, and if anyone's got any questions about the project, then AD will be able to answer them later on in the session. So thank you again. So we will now move on to listen to Elaine Barker from Hyneburn and Ribble Valley CVS talk to us about collaborations. And this is where my technical skills fall down, because I'm going to share Elaine's presentation. So Elaine, if you just want to kind of take the stage and say hello while I'm just messing around with this bit. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah. So thanks very much. And thanks, Gail, for inviting me to come and talk about collaboration. So CVSs are, you know, we love to collaborate. That's, you know, we're an infrastructure organisation. That's what we do. So really, you know, I'm quite at home talking about this. So yeah, thank you very much. Can everybody see that? See the screen?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okie dokie. Right. So why is collaboration a good thing? What do you get out of working with other people? You know, funding's quite scarce. Everybody has their own silos and things to do. So what can we get out of it? Well, ultimately, if we work together, obviously we get the collective intelligence that different groups have, and we get to pool the skills from different organisations. That will enable you to complete tasks. You know, you get more tasks completed and you make faster progress. So collaboration encourages you to be more efficient, more creative, more innovative, and to get more productivity out of what you're trying to do. So also the biggest thing about collaboration, really, it destroys any hierarchy. So you have to have a collective responsibility for all the people in all the teams that are working across an idea, and that in itself enables opinions and ideas from your group. So what you're doing is putting out a flat platform and letting everybody come in and actually, you know, really transparently do the work together. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. So I'll just let you read that yourself. That's all that slide just pulled together into a quick summary. It's a non-hierarchical way of working, sharing creativity and skills to reach a common goal. So I want to talk a little bit about the collaboration that's been going on through COVID. So the local authority hubs came up in each local authority to try and help with the COVID pandemic. And I just want to talk about the collaboration that CVS has had with the third sector within those hubs, and a little bit about how that's worked. So CVS is, you know, we've got LA CVS across Lancashire. We then span out more nationally, and we are the voice of the third sector. But we are quite a small charitable organisation, so we haven't got the systems to pull together the infrastructure and the collaboration that we'd like to do. The local authorities do. So we got up-to-date systems. CVS, sorry, is the Community Voluntary Service. So that's what that stands for. Sorry, I should have said that initially. So we got the up-to-date systems from the local authority hubs, and it enabled us to have a central platform. So everything worked from one place. That made sure that all the resources came out of that one place. So, you know, you got more efficient and better marketing than you could do before, more data collection, better ways of showing your impact. And it saved us just wasting time, really, because people knew where they could go. So everybody could go in to the hub, ask the questions, and get put out then to the organisations where, you know, that could help them. CVSs have always done that to a degree, but it was really good to have a totally sort of independent place where, you know, nobody, well, again, the hierarchical thing, nobody had that where it was totally flat. Everything went into one place and we could pull it all out where we needed to. Move on to the next one. Okay, so you can be more flexible through collaboration because you can be really reactive to change. Now, as we all know, through the pandemic, change has happened at least weekly, quite often daily. And with a collaboration, you can react to that change, and you can, instead of worrying about it or having set your stall out one way and not being able to flex it, you can really see those challenges as things that you can overcome together. And quite often the solution is there somewhere within that group. And so the challenges are actually easier to overcome. You know, working together, it does make challenges much easier. And quite excitingly, it takes the doom away from change that can quite often be there. Okay, move on to the next one. So making everything a little bit more easier to work with, that improves the atmosphere. So what you are doing is colleagues from different organisations are becoming better acquainted with each other. Through those connections that they're making, relationships are improving. So again, we have the forums, we have online at the moment meetings like this, and these are all brilliant for relationships, but bringing people together with a common goal and a collaboration, make sure you appreciate each other's work, and it does just firm up those relationships during that collaboration and hopefully moving on past it. So the confidence, everybody's confidence goes up if you can be relaxed and comfortable in what you're doing. And I think that leads to real cohesion, you know, better team spirit across a community, and any professional conflicts that, you know, that have come about quite naturally, really, because of people having to, you know, protect their own organisation's interests, have just declined because none of that is important anymore. Okay, next one. Okay, so talking a little bit more about the networking, if responsibility is no longer down to the individual and your whole multidisciplinary team has been given that responsibility, you can innovate faster, see mistakes quickly, and find better solutions to the problems. So you've got to be transparent in order to be able to, you know, find those mistakes and just be open and honest about them. But then together, the solutions do come quickly, and you can just continue to innovate and do the right thing for your communities. You can see the difference that makes. Okay, so next one. So that's all the good stuff about collaborating. But like everything, you know, what are the issues? If you're going to set up a collaboration, you know, what issues might you come about? Well, quite often there is a perceived imbalance in that hierarchy. People think that other people have more power or are a bigger player, and there's a lack of understanding for what each person can bring to that table. So, you know, straight away, I think all that sort of any ideas of you know, somebody being more important than somebody else can't be there when you start a collaboration. That it's got to all be put aside, and everybody's skills and knowledge have got to be respected. That's the only way that you can build trust and respect and your communication. If you don't trust each other or respect each other, you won't communicate properly, and then you won't put in the correct professional boundaries. Without any of that transparency and negotiation, you're just breeding the negative attitudes, and people will continue to think about their past experiences. They'll continue to perceive that they know the skills and knowledge that lie within their partners, and you'll get a lack of buy-in. And unless you've got a total buy-in for collaboration, that's going to be your biggest issue. So, so yeah, you know, those things have to be spoke about, I think, in-house with your own teams to begin with, spoke about at a CEO level between the people that are going to collaborate, and then make sure that that atmosphere is what's put across that collaboration moving forwards. So I just want to talk a little bit about the Hyndburn Hub, because that's been a national best practice collaboration, and one that I'm extremely proud to be involved in. So initially, it wasn't a brainchild of anybody in that collaboration. Actually, the chief exec of the local authority at the beginning of COVID knew that the community needed the resilience to be pulled together through the people that could do that. The leisure centre was obviously closing because of the restrictions. So he pulled in the CEO of the Leisure Trust and myself as the community voluntary service and put us together as a partnership, made it very clear that politics hadn't to enter into what we were trying to do, and that the community needed us to work together and come up with the way that we could bring the third sector and health and the local authority together to help the community in its biggest time of need, really. So I'd be lying if I said the partnership wasn't thrown together. We didn't even know we were both going to the same meeting at the same time. But luckily, because it was massively important that we did, work for the community, and we worked together doing that. And, we had a good working relationship already, be that in our own organisations. We started to immediately see what we could do together using the leisure centre, the better systems and resources, and our volunteer service. And we overachieved from day one on the outcomes. And that was simply by just addressing everything together and talking about it all the way through. As soon as we built that trust between myself and Lindsay, we started to connect the employees, and that formed some really strong teams to actually do the work. Out of that came the Hub network, which is working today. And that's where we could bring in all the other third sector organisations, a network of food banks, baby banks, debt and organisations, homelessness, substance abuse, and just about domestic abuse, just about all the different community organisations that you can think of, all coming together, sharing the same goal out of a hub. So every single team member that has joined that hub has had a really strong sense of purpose, and that that's really worked for us. There's always, we can identify a gap as soon as we see one, and there is somebody out there that's got the skills that can fill that gap. So doing that, playing to everybody's strengths, having different leaders at different times depending on what we need to do, means that the community really has grown from strength to strength. If you go into the vaccination centres now, it's running very smoothly. It's the community have all pulled together. I'm very proud to see what we've been able to do out there. And from March till now, we've pulled in just short of £1 million. Of course, money helps the community, and it's money that we wouldn't, any of us, have been able to do leading it on our own. So yeah, that's something that, that's collaboration working in its truest sense, I think. Okay, so next slide. So what do you do if you want to set up a collaboration? It can be between two organisations or more. What's the first steps to the success of that? I think the central point, the hub's being a central point, has really helped. So you just decide who the central point of that collaboration is. That means less meeting time between little silos of people, and it brings it all together. It has to start from a trusting environment. So collaborating organisations need to be teammates, and leaders need to have that collaboration at heart, over and above their own organisation. Everybody's got an important part to play, and collaboration will break down when some people feel that they've got a tougher task than other people have, or that other team members are trying to have that hierarchical attitude above them. So it's got to be a flat playing field where everybody is respected for what they can do, and it has to be run with positivity. So it's no good to bring in the past hang-ups of what may have happened before or what hasn't worked well before. It's got to be a new start, and everybody's got to be open and positive in the mindset of what the goal that they're out to achieve, and that's the way that we push forward, just to achieve that goal and the people that can benefit from it. So next one, so the final steps to success. It's rare to start on the same page. Like I say, in the Hyndburn collaboration, we didn't even know we were doing one until we were kind of thrown into it. So it's natural for people to have their own organisation at the heart of what they want to do first. It's important to make sure you really talk about the agenda of that collaboration up front. Find what the common denominator is and move forward together from the beginning. Once you know where you're going, you can build your processes around that and make sure your procedures are in place. That makes sure you've got a real clear understanding of who contributes to what and how that affects your group. And that if anything is missed or anybody isn't quite doing what they're supposed to do, you can address it really quickly. And hopefully that's been quite informative for everybody. And if there's any questions, I think we're doing questions later, aren't we, Gail? Yeah, that's it. Thank you
so much, Elaine. That was a brilliant overview of the pros and cons, and especially the fact that you've been involved in Hyndburn's Community Hub. I know we talked about it recently, about what a fantastic collaboration it's worked out to be, a model of national excellence, and that has been demonstrated in the last week, as we discussed, in the amount of community champion COVID funding that Hyndburn has been awarded, compared to other areas. So I will stop screen sharing there, and I will now come over to Paul Hartley from In Situ, who does lots and lots and lots of different kinds of collaborative work. So I think we're going to be spoilt for choice in what you're going to talk about now, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Everybody see that all right? Thanks, Elaine. I'm trying to think what I can add to what you've just put across there, Elaine. There's some really, really great points, and I'm glad you've kind of covered that really thoroughly. But I guess the angle that we come from is the idea of creative collaboration. That's the kind of the obvious thing. So my name's Paul. I'm a founding director of In Situ. So we're an arts organisation. So we're obviously passionate about working with artists and creative practitioners, and how that can contribute really to life in Pendle. I'm a Colner, so I'm Pendle born and bred, as it were, and part of setting up the organisation with two colleagues was kind of based on past collaborations, really. And for me, my background is working with young people in community development in and around Lancashire. I know that I've never been able to do anything that I've done on my own. I've always had to do it in collaboration. So I've trained in the arts, and I'm passionate about working with artists. And over time, worked with an artist called William and an artist called Kerry, and the three of us started In Situ, really based on past collaborations. We started In Situ to have like a longer term impact in Pendle, and for both me and William, it's where we live. So we wanted to kind of how artists could contribute to what the challenges are in Pendle, how we can celebrate things in Pendle in various different ways. You know, and this is sort of our vision, really. So we want art to be something that's doing something. We want it to contribute to society as a whole, and we really want to challenge current thinking about environment, people, place, and culture. So for us, collaboration is absolutely at the heart of everything we do. And in a lot of ways, we see everybody that we work with as a collaborator. So rather than necessarily thinking about participants or audience members or anything like that, which might be kind of within the art speak, is that actually the projects happen because we work with people. For us, Elaine mentioned this, conversation is absolutely, I think Chris mentioned it as well. Conversation is absolutely key in the processes of collaboration. And really it's about, for me, it's about allowing the time and space to do that. And often a lot of projects that we do kind of create those spaces to bring people into that process of conversation and collaboration. This is one of the tools that we use. It's called Talkioke. Some of you may have experienced it. It's a pop-up talk show, and we worked collaboratively with some artists from London called The People Speak. It's a very democratic, open space for people to come around and talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about. And often a lot of our projects have come out of these conversations, but it's a place where you can get a whole range of people to come together in a democratic, in a safe space. And that's, for me, is partly where the collaboration happens. We've done some really interesting projects, which I think really for me is about generational collaboration. So William ran a project. He's very interested in kind of those cultures that are a little bit more hidden within our communities. And he was really interested in what Northern Soul, for people who know that, it's a kind of 60s, 70s movement, which is still very popular today, cultural movement of listening to and dancing to soul music. There's some interesting working men's clubs still active in our area, which were like the starting points of a lot of this stuff. And we had this interesting project where we had young people collaborating with older people in the community, where they realised through a conversation that they were both dancing to the same record. One was a remix, and one was of an old Northern Soul track. So this project was about then learning about each other's cultures as part of that and seeing where that goes, which resulted in a documentary of these young people learning about Northern Soul, and we went to the championships in Blackpool. But again, generationally, there's some really interesting opportunities for collaboration there. Of course, we work a lot with artists, but also artists collaborate with each other. So we've had some great opportunities where artists come with their different ways of thinking. This is the end of a river walk that was done where 2 artists were collecting litter in the river to kind of highlight issues around environmental concerns in the area. But a project that they developed together created a beautiful film. But again, it's interesting when you just get artists coming together to collaborate. I mean, even though I talk about being an arts organisation, often it's not always obviously art for what people think or presume as art. And partly that is because of the interesting collaborations that we do. So over the last number of years, we've done lots of work collaboratively around how we can reactivate empty spaces. And this is one of the major ones that we took part in. So this is Brayfield Mill, for those who know it. It's now called Northlight and is well on its way in terms of a development, in terms of apartments, business spaces. We are now based there. Burnley Football Club's based there as well. But we had some really interesting time collaborating with people in potentially what that space could be. So the water wheel there was a collaboration between Kerry, environmental artist, working with an engineer, looking at how we can harvest rainwater that resulted in the water wheel. We worked a lot with young people, particularly those young people interested in alternative sports like skateboarding, and we turned it into a skate park one weekend inside the mill. We've worked with international artists. This was around refugee and asylum seekers at the bottom there, Christoph. So helping those collaborations, helping to bring sometimes challenging and difficult conversations to our communities using these empty spaces. But again, sometimes where that collaboration happens can unlock all sorts of ideas of what could be. I mean, I've mentioned young people once already, but we see young people as really key collaborators. This is some past work we've done. We do quite a lot with Nelson and Con College with their students. Again, creating space for them to kind of develop their own ideas, but find that working with young people is often a very, very rewarding experience in a collaborative form, rather than the idea that you're doing things for young people and helping to find space for their voice to happen. And this was an exhibition, again, done in the mill, which was all about the things that were important to them. So there were beauty ideals, stuff around fracking and issues to do with climate change, but all collectively put into one space to kind of host over a weekend. More recently, we're doing a long-term project with the Forest of Bowland and the Pendle Hill Landscape Partnership Project. And again, we're doing a lot of work where artists are collaborating with various different professionals within the environment sector. So with ecologists, botanists, and also in terms of access to Pendle Hill, so different communities and how they can feel they can access those sort of spaces in and around our countryside. This is an interesting project we did where we had artists collaborating with archaeologists. So there was a dig in Pendle, near Pendle, where they were hoping to find maybe the house of which some of the Pendle Witch activity happened. They did find a 17th century dwelling, not necessarily directly linked to that story, but they did find that. And we had a group of artists that were working alongside the archaeology team there. And what we did through that collaboration was help retell the stories, the finds that they did, and the history of that area into something that then could be shared back with other audiences across Pendle and also the Ribble Valley as well, the other side of the hill. We've also done some really interesting collaborations with businesses. We're doing some work at the moment, which we're describing as a future of work. So we're really interested in kind of what that might look like for people in Pendle. What would the employment be? We're involved in partly developing the Nelson Town Deal approach. So how do town centres start to kind of react to what the future might be, obviously post-COVID and everything. But again, working alongside businesses, finding out what it is that they're doing, what their future looks like. And partly this was also creating a series of virtual or 3D films for young people to experience workplaces as part of that conversation as well. But again, bringing just a different approach with those businesses around those conversations, and then where we can then share that further afield. I mentioned the Pendle Hill Project. This is another one. This is Kerry, who's actually a founder director of In Situ. Pendle Hill is made up of something called peat. You may or may not know much about that. For me, at the beginning, it was just black, horrible, sticky stuff that your foot got stuck in when you went walking. But obviously, it's a very important material for climate change. But again, how do you tell that story to other people so people can understand that? Kerry collaborated with a chef. The chef created something called the Pendle Peat Pie. That pie is very delicious, but again, it's an interesting way of communicating some of those environmental messages to lots of other people. We now are collaborating with a pie producer in Blackburn. Just before lockdown, this was going to be going out to restaurants and shops to buy, alongside information about that. That is something we will be picking up. But again, you know, a collaborative approach to look at how we can communicate things, to look at some of these challenges in and around our area, as well as global themes. I wanted to briefly mention this project. This was probably one of the most significant projects I've been involved in, and you know, colleagues have been involved in. Again, international collaboration with an artist from America, based around sort of the mill, its past industrial heritage, but actually bringing together communities in Pendle using forms of singing and chanting to do that. But just as a point of, I mean, this was quite an ambitious project involving nearly 1,000 people. But in terms of collaborations, there was a whole range of people that were part of that process. And, you know, and going back to some of the things Elaine was saying, in terms of everybody being on that same mission and that same vision together, you know, spending that time, having that time to explore all that, to kind of come up with creative solutions, interesting events and activities to explore challenging situations in our communities. You know, when you've got the time to do that, it is really valuable to see where that can go and what that can be achieved. And again, often, you know, simple things like conversation, creating space for people to meet and talk within all that sort of process is really, really key for making some of that happen. I mean, more recently, we've built some very strong collaborations locally with organisations. This is some work that we did, obviously, as part of some of the activity around, you know, looking at developing positive messages for people locally around COVID, and this was sort of in between the lockdowns last summer. So this is working with Building Bridges. You know, how can we create a more friendly message for people? How can we have that conversation? But again, collaborative approaches in terms of coming up with that, spending time together, meeting people in communities, shopping centres, supermarkets, all that sort of stuff. But again, you know, doing that together collectively, not necessarily as one organisation, but doing it for the benefit of local people in the area, I guess. And also, Chris has talked a lot about Together an Active Pendle, so we have been an active partner on that. And again, this has been a really interesting experience in terms of bringing a creative approach, which is what we do, but also working alongside a researcher, academic researcher from Manchester University, a local, again, researcher who comes up with kind of the online surveys and studies. But how can all those things kind of work more productively together, you know, rather than having one and then the other? You know, how can they inform each other? And actually working together, how can that strengthen some of the information gathering, those processes you have through getting surveys? How can you do that creatively, bringing in other elements to do that, but doing it together and not in parallel? And this has been a really interesting process to do that. And again, that has the opportunity to have a long-term impact around all that, to kind of keep pushing it rather than the one short hit projects that sometimes can happen. I mean, I think that's kind of it, really. I mean, a few bits I wanted just to, I guess, build on what Elaine was saying. For me, there's something, obviously, it's allowing time for it to happen, you know, where possible. Allow that process to be organic as well, and not worry too much about where it may or may not go, because sometimes that's the excitement of collaborations, of where it can go. Not to be afraid to be challenged as well with it. And it often, you know, we feel as challenged as much as we can offer that challenge back to people. We've made the mistakes of making too many assumptions in the past as well, that people understand each other and what they do. So I really emphasize the idea of spending that time working out what that collaboration looked like, and how, and the piece that you bring to that puzzle, really, and understand. And being really open and prepared to ask people that you may want to collaborate, because you never know who is up for it, really. And I would always say, you know, I'd welcome anybody wanting to come to talk to us, but also if you think you want to speak to somebody like an ecologist or botanist, depending what it is you do, just reach out, because often they're desperate for those collaborations to help them achieve what they want to achieve. So I think that'll do.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I wasn't wrong when I said that we were going to be spoilt for choice with the things that you've been involved with within situ. So many, different dimensions and some really unexpected there as well. Love this. Well, I was going to say I love the skateboarding inside the mill, and then you showed us something else. I was like, well, I love that. I love that. Anyway, I have to say, having listened to all 3 presentations this afternoon, I feel so privileged to be doing what I do in East Lancashire and working with all of you, and doing whatever I can to help your projects move along. Really, really so great. And I'm definitely glad that we are recording this session, because I certainly feel the need to watch it back to pick up on stuff that I might have missed this time around as well. So we have had some questions dropped in the chat. First of all, Paul, there's a question for you here about the range of your work. Is it just Pendle? Are there any similar organisations to yours in Hyndburn?
Yeah, our work is definitely focused in Pendle. That's a decision we've made as an organisation, but we're very active across a broader network, and happy to share all that. We're part of a network called Arts Partners in Pennine, Lancashire. So there are a number of arts organisations also working across East Lancashire. We do a lot of work, and the major project that I did show was in collaboration with Super Slowway, and I think we've got Uzma with us on the call today. So Super Slowway actually work across Pennine, Lancashire as well. So they'd be a really great organisation to talk to around all that. But yeah, I can make.
That seems an ideal opportunity for me to invite Uzma just to share a sort of a brief introduction with us. I did prep Uzma for this previously. I'm not just dropping her in it.
Hi everyone, thank you. Thanks Paul, thanks Gail. It's nice to meet everyone. So my name's Uzma and I work for Super Slowway, working sort of in the community, and we're an arts commissioning programme, so we commission artists to come and create projects in the local community. So we work across sort of East Lancashire and West Pennine, Lancashire, sort of Blackburn, Hyndburn, Burnley and Pendle, and we do kind of work sort of fairly fluidly along those areas. A lot of our work, one of our big projects a couple of years ago was the British Textile Biennial, which we'll have again this October, which is kind of goes across sort of towns across the 4 boroughs, and is sort of really varied in what what we sort of show. We work with communities. We like to work sort of really organically. So the Susanna Lacey project that Paul mentioned, that was sort of like 3 years in the making. Suzanne came, she was sort of embedded in that community, got to know the communities, and kind of really worked closely with them, had conversations. And then from that came the shape note singing and the chanting, or they were there, and then kind of recognising that those were already in the community, and kind of utilising that and bringing that up to and creating something from that. Sorry. So that's what we do. We kind of say, find what's in the community and really give it sort of space and room to grow, and get artists who can really kind of nurture that process. I can't add anything else to what everybody else said, because it's been so amazing in terms of collaboration and stuff, and I feel really privileged to be here working on a few projects in Hyndburn and in Nelson. So we've got a sort of a floating library that's coming up, so if you want to kind of be involved in that, obviously socially distanced, come and have a look, have a story read to you, a writing space. And then in Nelson, we're currently doing some consultation for Reaching Communities bid that'll happen maybe early next year. If you want to get involved in that, just drop me a line. Do you want me to add anything else, Gail? Is that all right?
No, that's brilliant, Uzma.
Cool.
And I'm sharing everybody's contact details in the follow-up email that I send out, which will also have the recording link on it as well.
Thank you.
Just another quick question for Paul. Pam wants to be reminded of the name of the group conversation approach you use.
Yeah, I've just dropped a link in. So like I said, it's called Tokyoke. So it's an organisation called People Speak actually created that, and I've worked with Mikey for about 10 years now. So it's tokyoke.com if you want to have a look at that. But if you want to talk to us about, because that is something we can do beyond Pendle. You know, it's a tool that we can take out, particularly if people have got a bit of resource. So we're happy to talk about that. And we've been doing that as a digital version as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Paul. So Elaine, well, this is sort of targeted at you, but anyone else who wants to jump in with it, is it fair to say that in any collaboration, you still need a leader to maintain momentum and to drive the project? And that was a question from Deborah.
Yeah, hiya. I think it is fair to say, but I think that leader can be sort of an agreed person, you know, and potentially you set up the structure, and then the leader may change, you know, it may alter. So you might have a couple of months with one leader, and then somebody else takes over the lead for a bit. And I think it's just something that you've got to you know, talk about at the beginning and make sure, you know, so it's like the thing is the goal rather than the who. And then different people pick up at different times. That's what I'd say.
Absolutely. And I think we saw a move to this kind of structure in the public sector some years ago, you know, when it comes to protecting children and those kind of behaviours. You kind of appoint somebody as a lead, but it very often isn't the most senior person in the space that is taking that lead role.
Gail, I mean, that's something you know, we have a great interest in situ as well. And I'm really interested in what leadership looks like within collaboration as an organisation, because I know, Elaine, you mentioned non-hierarchical. I mean, we actually have a non-hierarchical structure where everybody's actually paid all the same, bar an intern coming in at a certain point. So we have a flat pay structure and ways of which we kind of make decisions in as a joint collaborative process internally, but obviously that ekes out into projects that we do. But I'm really interested in the idea where leadership shifts and change, really. So sometimes for me, you know, our graduate trainee is leading on something that I just don't feel like I've got the expertise, and I'm really interested in where that shifts about really in part of the process.
Yeah, I think that is definitely something that's very worthy of further investigation, and I'm very interested to find out more myself, Paul. So another question, I'm afraid, for you, Paul, which is from James, who wants to know about artists and COVID. Would you look into sort of virtual reality for social distancing and because of the generational gap?
Well, it's something that we're looking into at the moment. I mean, we you know, I guess everybody's kind of researching and looking at various different platforms at this time, and this sort of term blended work is something that I think will be the future of what we're doing. There's no doubt that we are desperate to get back to some face-to-face activity, and we've had the ability to do that in some format. Now, in terms of intergenerational, at the moment, the stuff around the VR things, we're actually trying to develop a bit more of a sustainable platform where young people can access some of these employment opportunities. And this is working with the Lancashire Enterprise Partnership. But in terms of that generational work, it's, you know, it's a real challenge to find those places where they could come in. But we're up for trying to explore it.
Thank you. Now, this is where it doesn't help that it's so busy. Is there anybody who's got any other questions they'd like to ask verbally, or any contributions they'd like to make? It would really help if you could put your digital hand up. Or just give me a wave. Fiona.
Hello, I'm Fiona Standring, the Mayor of Pendle Secretary. I do recognise some faces, Paul from In Situ being one. I just wanted to back up what's being said about collaboration. Different people can bring different useful commodities to the table. For example, we were marking Holocaust Memorial Day, and we got talking to Building Bridges Pendle, who've worked with Paul and In Situ. They were able to bring the talkie-walkie machine. The mayor and mayoress were able to attend and sort of bring the profile that they can sometimes bring. We had the public, we had a secondary school that Building Bridges and we've got a good relationship, and we each brought different things to the table. The talkie-walkies are absolutely amazing. As you can see, they're sort of 360 degrees. The microphone can be handed to anybody around that circle, very approachable. The library, Nelson Library, we used their venue. They were then able to use the same event to flag up LGBT History Month, so that different people can bring so many different resources to something. So it's just to back up the strength of collaboration, and big thumbs up to the Talkioki as well.
Thank you, Fiona. Yeah, some
Fiona.
Brilliant additions there. Anybody else want to wave at me? Flicking through. No, in that case then, I will now hand over to Paul Haunch, who is my supervisor here at Our Lancashire. And Paul has got rather an interesting sort of work history that has led you to be involved in lots of collaborations, Paul.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Gail. I'm inspired by absolutely all the presentations. Like you guys, our core business is working collaboratively. I work for Our Lancashire. Our mantra is let's join together, because we know we can achieve much more by working together. I like to think I've got partnership in my DNA through my bones, because I've had 14 jobs in the public-private voluntary sector doing community engagement and collaboration. It's so obvious to me, it's the way forward. But I'm learning new things all the time. I feel totally inspired and humbled by all of your presentations. And I certainly can't top or add to them, but I suppose just a few things that occur to me, I've always got a few things to say, is I would say in my current role as supervisor with Our Lancashire, in partnership together, let's join together, we work across 14 different districts of Lancashire. And what I can say is the COVID response that we've been part of and we've witnessed has been much more profound and impactful within those areas where there is an attitude around collaboration, sharing power, sharing the risks, and just getting on with it. Those local authorities and partner organisations that have gone into the COVID response with that mindset have achieved much more, and achieved it much more easily and much more cost effectively. I think COVID has been, it's not fair to generalise, but I will. It has been a challenge for local authorities and everybody, but the local authorities that have responded well have been those that already have the mindset to collaborate. In some local authorities, less so in Lancashire, but in other areas, that some are still very risk averse. Some want procedures and policies in place. Some want risk assessments to the nth degree in place before they will engage in collaboration. And I would say those, if COVID's taught us anything, it's that those days have gone. We can't be risk averse. We've got to, I would actually say positive risk taking is the way forward, not being risk averse. You guys have talked about creativity, atmosphere, fun, solutions, time and space, power, resources, all of those things you've said have come out of that. And when we've talked about the cons, they're not reasons not to collaborate, they're just things to consider. So if you think about the cons, well, shared power and decision making, well, surely that's a good thing. Liability, who takes the liability? Well, surely sharing that is a positive thing. What do we do if we disagree? Again, it's a positive conversation to be had. Who will own the profit or the loss? Who will own the disaster if it goes wrong? They were kind of local authority traditional ways of looking at partnership working. And I think to a big extent, COVID's blown a lot of that out of the water. It's forced even the most risk-averse organisations to realise we can't do it alone. And you've really demonstrated today that all the business case for partnership working, the moral case, the ethical case, the practical case, why wouldn't you? I listen to this and think, why wouldn't you work in partnership? Because no one of us, no single organisation can achieve this on their own. And I look back to some of my local authority days, a Troubled Families project, where there were 20 different organisations walking down the path to each house to address these problem families. So you had the police going down the path, then social services going down the path, then someone from the NHS going down the path, then education welfare going, all working in their silos, 20 different organisations. And when austerity kicked in and they were forced to work together, at last they could pool their resources and develop meaningful, holistic solutions to actually help troubled families, rather than troubled families just being a revolving door, just spinning round these 20 different organisations. So I'm totally convinced that collaboration and partnership working is the way forward. And if I wasn't convinced before, your presentations have certainly made that difference. There's an ethical and moral and a practical business case and an environmental business case as well for working together. Thank you very much. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep inspiring. Never give up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. I think we're all going away from this session completely inspired by what we have heard today. Thank you, Charlotte, for dropping that leadership link into the chat. I will make sure that is also shared in the follow-up email. We do have these sessions the first Thursday of every month. And for February, we are going to be looking at social media management. So look out for the booking link coming out for that very shortly. Thank you all for attending today. As I mentioned at the beginning, the room will stay open if you want to stick around for networking, to talk to some of the other people on the call about anything you want to talk about for the next half an hour. But otherwise, if you've got something better to be doing, or children to attend to, or you're just ready for a brew, I look forward to seeing you again in future. And thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Great job.
Brilliant.
Well done, Gail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.